Hey guys, so I thought I would do a video that I saw Mel Thompson do. I think she's the one that came up with this. This is basically my favorite palette from every brand that I own. And a big thank you to Mel for coming up with this idea. I think it's so much fun. It's so great. I'm gonna basically like follow what she did, where I'm only gonna be talking about brands where I have like more than 2 palettes from, because it doesn't really make sense to talk about brands where I only have 1 or 2 palettes, and to kind of like name my favorite palette out of that just seems silly. So anyway, I have 11 here. Because I have so many single shadows, I really thought I was gonna have more brands where I had like multiple palettes, but I only have 11, which was kind of a surprise to me. But anyway, I thought that was good enough to do this video. So I think you may be surprised by some of my answers. I'm gonna start with one that I think may surprise you the most. So I'm gonna be talking about Charlotte Tilbury, and she has a lot of quads. She started coming out with those longer palettes. She has like that 12 pan palette. Like, she has a lot of different shapes, but I have the most of her quads, and this by far has been the one. It's fairly new too, which kind of surprised me, but this has taken over as my favorite palette from her. And this is the Star Aura palette that was part of her Hollywood Flawless Eye Filter Luxury palette line. So she came out with 3 of these, and you know, she was touting like this brand new formula, and you know how exciting this was, and how it was going to be like this filter, like, you know, kind of filter out your eyes. They're basically like a baked gelée formula versus her pressed powder. And this formula is so gorgeous. I don't know if I would call it like a Hollywood Flawless filter for my eyes, but I just love the formula so much. As you guys know, I love a good baked gelée formula, and this color story is absolutely gorgeous. I actually just recently used this in a video where I'm talking about the Beautylish Yano series eye set. They just applied like a dream, and the color story is just so like just beautiful, you know, beautiful for day, beautiful for evening. There's a little shimmer to each shade. So this one is my favorite Charlotte Tilbury quad. And then as I'm looking at the rest of this pile, I feel like a lot of these aren't going to be a big surprise, especially like this next one. So for Pkwy, a lot of their palettes are like limited edition. They have some quads, they have some 9-pan palettes. I was very tempted by a 9-pan palette, but hands down, my favorite palette from them, and this is just a duo, is their Le Chrome Luxe Eye Duo in Tibet. And it's just stunning. It's just absolutely stunning. These are baked shadows, and they're not baked gelée, but they are baked. And they're so shimmery and shiny and smooth. And these 2 shades are like all that you need. You can put this lighter one down all over the eye if you just want a simple look. Just finish it off with like liner, mascara. It's gorgeous. You'll look very polished. You'll look very sophisticated. And then if you just want to like add a little bit of dimension, we have the darker shade there. You can just add it to like the outer corner just to give it a little bit more something. You can even use the dark one all over if you want like more of a smoky look. It's like these 2 shades alone are together gorgeous. The formula is incredible. So this is my favorite Pkwy palette. And then a brand that I feel like I just don't talk about enough on my channel. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just I don't get the chance to, but I actually have their eyeshadow quad on my lids today, and this is Clé de Peau. And if you guys have watched my channel for a while, you will have remembered me talk about this quad quite a bit when I first got it. But this quad is my absolute favorite. And I probably have 4 or 5 quads from them. Some of them are limited edition, which are beautiful. And then I do have one, I want to say it's called like Baby Universe. I do have that one as well. That one has like a little bit more of like a pinky tone to it, pinky purpley tone to it. But this one is just so me. It's just the shades are gorgeous. The finish of the shades are really beautiful. So I just have these 2 shades down today. I have the lighter one all over, and then I have the darker one as like a liner. And it's just, oh, just a beautiful like soft satin. And then these 2 shades that I used are a little bit cooler, a little bit more neutral. And then these 2 at this end are a little bit warmer, but they all go together really well. So you can actually do like a lot of looks, a lot of different looks with this quad, probably more than you think. And it's just beautiful. The formula is great. They're like a pressed powder. They're a little bit on the softer side, so they just kind of blend up. They like pick up easily and they blend out really beautifully. Oh, I just love this. So this one, I'll leave the shade name down below in my description box. This dark shade at the end, it's not even like a black. It's more of like a soft black. It has maybe like a little bit of brown gray in there. It's so pretty. So pretty. So that is my favorite Clé de Peau palette. Okay, let's jump to one that makes me angry. And you guys saw, I think you guys probably caught that video where I was really desperately pleading to companies to bring back palettes that have been discontinued. And my favorite palette from NARS is discontinued. This is the Loaded palette. And you know, much like everything else that I've shown and probably will be showing, this is just like a neutral lover's dream. You know, it has a few warm tones in there. It has some cool tones in the hair. There's like a ton of different finishes. It's so versatile. It's so, you know, wearable. It's so everyday. It can be very evening too. There's some deep shades in there if you want to like smoke things out. It's just wonderful. And I don't understand why this is not part of their permanent collection. So that's the NARS Loaded palette. And then the palette that kind of reminds me of the, well, I should say, the NARS Loaded palette kind of reminds me of this palette. And this is my favorite Viseart palette. This is their neutral mattes palette. And this one is, in contrast to the NARS palette, this one is all matte. But it's a wonderful, wonderful neutral palette. I love Viseart shadows. You guys know that. I love the formula. They're so pigmented, but like evenly. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's never any difficulty when it comes to Viseart shadows. I don't feel like any of them are temperamental in any way. I don't feel like any of them are ever difficult to blend out, or they don't ever kind of like change shades, like change tones on my lid. You know how sometimes shades, like they look one way in the pan and then you apply them and you're like, oh, that warmed up a little bit. Never ever with Viseart shades. They're just like spot on, just workhorse, awesome shades. But this is my favorite palette of theirs, and I have a lot of Viseart palettes, but this one is just like the gold standard. I feel like this palette has been, you know, copied over and over again, attempts at copies, and just nothing ever really quite captures the magic of the Viseart Neutral Mattes palette. It's just perfection. So that is my favorite Viseart palette. And then, surprise, surprise, I actually have a lot of Melt Cosmetics palettes, and their favorite palette of mine is their Gemini palette. For those of you who may not know this about me, I love green. I love green shadows. I just really like the color green. And this has like my favorite kinds of greens, these kind of really scummy, yellow-based, mustardy kind of yellows, like this one, Fire OG. Oh, I love, and this kind of like mochi, this like mustardy kind of yellow. I love these colors. They just speak to the little grungy Michelle from the 90s. I really love this palette, and I do very much enjoy the Melt formula. I think they're really pigmented. I don't know that I would actually say these are beginner friendly. I think because they're so pigmented, you have to work, you know, kind of carefully and really slowly with them, you know, build them up slowly. And I think that's why I personally don't, I wouldn't recommend them for a beginner, but I think they're lovely. I think they're beautiful. They're very pigmented. So this is my favorite Melt palette. So next let's talk about Dior. This one is absolutely no surprise. I have not shut up about this palette since I got it. So this is the new Dior Quint in Soft Cashmere. I do have quite a few of the new Quints. I have almost all of them. I've decluttered a few since I got them. I enjoy all the ones that I kept. I love them. I think they're really beautiful. But this one just is like the perfect like neutral tone. All the other ones lean a little bit warm or cool, or they're brighter. This one is just, oh, so spot on. This top color, it's so me. I love, as you guys know, I love a good metallic taupe, and this one just, it just does it for me. And the whole color story is gorgeous. Like almost every shade in here is like a one and done shade. And then of course you can use multiple shades to kind of build a more dimensional, interesting look if you want. But yeah, every shade in here is gorgeous, works beautifully. And I think the beauty to this palette is so subtle because each shade has like a slightly different finish to each, even though it's hard to tell, but this is like the most metallic. This is like a satin. This is matte. This is like a topper. This one is like a demi matte, demi satin kind of shade. And they just work beautifully together. It's just stunning. I love this Quint. I could stare at this Quint all day. So that's my favorite Dior palette, the soft cashmere. It's number 669. Yeah, 669. I have two brands where I would say this has probably changed over the past couple of months. If you would have asked me maybe last fall, I would have named a different palette. As for the moment, this is my favorite palette for Chanel. This is the one that just recently came out, part of their, I think their Le Pearl collection. I'm losing track. Yeah, this is part of their Le Pearl collection. So this is relatively new. This is number 374, Allure et Éclat. And these are the pans that are actually flat. So they're not the rounded baked shadows. And these are just so subtle and beautiful. The shadows, like this one is a duochrome. This one is kind of like a shimmery top coat, glittery shimmery top coat. These are satins and they're so soft. They have a really, really soft look. You're not gonna get like an Instagram look out of this palette. It's pretty much like the opposite of that. It's just a very subtle, soft kind of eyeshadow palette. You'll get a very subtle and soft eyeshadow look. I just really like it for every day. Like, am I gonna reach for this if I'm going for something dramatic? No, of course not. But for 360 days out of the year, this is definitely something I would go for. And of course, I thought about the Claire Obscure. I thought about the 9-pan palette, which is limited edition and you can't get anymore. But there's just something about this one I just really love, because all of those palettes that I just named are very everyday. They're very neutral, nothing, you know, Instagram about them. But I find myself a little bit more attracted to this. It's a little bit more unique because you have a few different finishes in here. So anyway, this is my favorite Chanel palette, number 374. All right, next we've got Tom Ford. Now this is a brand where I have so many of his quads. I mean, just so many. And I know the ones that I love, I reach for, I think of, you know, when I think about a Tom Ford quad. But this one, you know, it kind of reminds me actually of this Chanel one, the color story and everything. But yeah, I really, really love this one. I just think this one is so, so beautiful. So I know when I'm choosing a favorite Tom Ford quad, it's going to be of that wet dry, like baked gelée formula. So that narrows it down right there. I've just been using this one like crazy. So this is First Frost. It was part of this past winter Soleil Neige collection. I don't even know what they're calling it anymore. I think the Soleil Neige collection. And I just adore it. It is just beautiful. I don't know what else to say, but this shade up here is kind of a pinky peach, but that's the shade that I always look forward to using when I open up this quad. All of the other ones I feel like are supporting colors to this one shade. So I'll use this as a one and done shadow. And then of course I'll build some dimension with the other three. But this wet dry formula is amazing, absolutely beautiful. You get this really shimmery, shiny, like finish, but the opacity of it is definitely more on the sheer side. And then when you wet the shadow, you can get more of like an opaque and even more intense like metallic shadow. But I like using them dry because I like that wash. Oh, it's so, so beautiful. And this color story is just, you know, it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. So that is my favorite Tom Ford quad. And then these last two, I think are probably no surprise. Well, this one maybe is a surprise. So Pat Mcgrath, I hold a Mothership palette and I have gone between Mothership 1, Subliminal, and Mothership 5. Is it 5? Divine Rose? No, that's 6 or 7. Wow, I cannot keep track of anything. But I'm always kind of going between Subliminal and Divine Rose. Subliminal, Divine Rose, Subliminal, Divine Rose. Well, as of late, my favorite has kind of gone back to Subliminal. I just love the 6 shades in here. And then of course, these are always really a lot of fun. But it's these 6 shades in all the Mothership palettes that I feel like are the ones that I kind of like go back to, or like the reason why I choose that particular palette. So these two mattes work beautifully for me. This works as a great transition shade. This works great for, you know, adding a little bit of depth. This is great for inner corner highlight. This is obviously great for like liner. And then we have two satiny shades here. And this is a beautiful, say it with me, like metallic taupe. It's definitely on the deeper side, but it is so gorgeous. I just love it so much. And then this like slightly grayish lilac color is beautiful. And I'm not like a purple eyeshadow fan, but this kind of purple, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love it. I love it. I love how there's a lot of gray in there. So this is my favorite Pat McGrath palette. And then last but not least, Natasha Denona. And I have named this palette as my favorite Natasha Denona palette for a while, ever since I got it. It is the 28 pan green brown palette. It is just chock full of gorgeous shades. And like I mentioned when I was talking about the Melt palette, I love green. That's like, you know, if I had to pick like one color, like color to go with, it would be green. And we've got some really beautiful greens here. I mean, from like aquas to forest greens. And then we just have all of these beautiful neutrally shades like supporting that. I love this palette. It just has so many different finishes. It works beautifully. The fact that there's 28 shades in here, and when I open this up, I'm not like, you know, it's so cohesive. Like Natasha Denona really is like a color genius. The way this is laid out, all of the shades in here, I mean, they all work beautifully together. They're all like completely different too at the same time. They have different tones. Like, look at how warm these are. And then look at how cool some of these are. And it's just this whole like range, and it's all just incredible. It's all just incredible. It's all just beautiful. And then there's a ton of different finishes, which just makes it even more exciting. So that is my favorite Natasha Denona palette. And that is it. I feel like I sped through that because I just didn't want to like linger too long on any palette, but I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was really fun to kind of like put together this list, and a big thank you to Mel Thompson for coming up with this video idea. You guys let me know what some of your favorite palettes are from your favorite brands. I would love to hear from you down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.